Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you're at in the United States, or good evening if you're overseas. My name's Scott Clayton. I'm the Engagement Director for Advaiya Solutions. And first of all, we want to thank you for joining us today in our webinar. And we look forward to showing you different ways to improve your data journey by using Power BI and enacting data, and how to build reports and Power BI reporting as you move along. Now, what are actionable insights, or why even talk about actionable insights? Because actionable insights are what really drive us on a daily basis to make the decisions that we all need to make to run an effective business. Today, we'll cover different examples of data and business decisions, the history and evolution of data, and what's next. And then what we also want to do is make sure we show each of you how to start your data journey, whether you're in it's in its infancy or whether you're moving along. Because one of the things that we want to always emphasize is that technology is always changing. And that's what makes it so fascinating. What was important a year ago might be out of date with what's going on now. And then we finally want to sit down and say, okay, these are the next steps. How can we help you continue your data journey? Okay. So with that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the presenters. There's just two of us, so it's pretty easy. My name, as I said, is Scott Clayton. I'm the Director of Engagements. I've been in the software industry for a long time. That's why I've got the gray hairs. I started in Microsoft on the Dynamics teams. And as I said, the thing that has always just enthralled me is that technology and data in particular never changes. This is an industry where you're continually having the opportunity to learn, so to speak. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to my boss, the President and Chief Technology Officer for Advaiya Solutions, Dharmesh.
Good morning. Thank you, Scott. I'm Dharmesh Goda. As Scott mentioned, I'm the president and CTO of the organization. I have been working in this space for almost all my career, and started with Microsoft, and then started a bunch of small companies, and then got into this consulting organization. What I take pride in is basically that as an organization, we look at everybody's problem very individually, because we know that everybody's problems are unique and they have a very kind of tailored solution set that they would need in order to solve their issues. And what we try to do is basically, instead of creating a new solution from scratch, we try to utilize the platform solutions that are available from platform players like Microsoft. We bring technologies together. That's what we do. We are system integrators, and we can bring in those things in order to benefit and optimize the implementations that are happening in your organization. With that, I just want to recap on our some of our ground rules. We want to encourage participation, so please feel free to type in your questions and or comments or feedback that you might have in our chat window, and we will address them as we reach the final few minutes of the webinar. We also are going to follow up after this webinar with each of you to provide you a kind of a tailored free consulting. That's where we want to go, and basically, because everybody's situation is different, everybody's situation is unique, and we want to make sure that we go into your mindset, your environment, and then talk about like how things can happen and how technology can help you. And if there is something that we can help you directly on there, we will love to help you guys on those things. As Scott mentioned, we will be following up with the recording of this webinar and the slide deck. And with that, Scott, why don't you introduce our organization in detail?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dharmesh. Advaiya Solutions, we've been helping our customers for a long time during their digitalization journey, from identifying a roadmap to deploying the right applications and effective analytics and leveraging their digital opportunities. We believe that while each company's goals are unique and individual to them, we also believe that every company shares one important goal, and that they want to be able to make their decisions based on good analytical data. We do this by aligning our technology in basically 4 different areas. And that's what part of what we're going to go through on the webinar today to help you as you do your journey, so to speak. Number one is obviously decision making. Number two is business productivity, customer experience, and a technology-led agenda. And it used to be where you'd see like a strip out, and when you think of decision making, think of like BI as that first step of your moving, so to speak. And then think of like when you look at your customer experience, look at CRM, things like that that help with your customer experience. And that's how we based what we do. Now, we've been doing this since 2005. We're a Microsoft Gold partner in several different areas, analytics, cloud migration, and we also have partnerships with some of the largest software companies in the world. We're also partners with Google, AWS, NetSuite, and Sidecore. And we've managed many of the most highly technical projects in the world, including direct projects from Microsoft and Google. Now that I've told you a little bit about who we are, let me kind of begin to get the ball rolling on data, really why you're all here. So Dharmesh, can you kind of begin to unwind the business decisions and how data affects them, please?
Sure. Thank you, Scott. Data actually if directly affects everything that we do right now. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of business leaders on our webinar today and a lot of managers over here. We are actually taking decisions daily. Now, things that we kind of question ourselves on every day is like, hey, am I paying our employees or our team members correctly? Do we have salary benchmarking? What do I need to pay for hiring a new employee or retaining an old employee? How do I think about expanding the market? Which area do I need to go for? I mean, you know how Amazon uses the different kind of data elements and clicks that any customer is making on their platform in order to provide the goods or like suggestions that they can buy. We think about inventory management day to day. You know that I mean, there is a study around this thing that companies actually lose 3% of their customers if they run out of product for the first time, and if it goes up till 50% if you again go out of the product. So if you are out of product the second time, you are losing 50% of your customers. Now in today's economy, it's very important that we kind of look at the timing of certain things, what seasonality of certain things. Do we need to like stock up for the holiday season? We need to look at the different kind of data that is coming in order to make sure that we are actually planning and making decision based on the data side of the things. Product pricing is another question that every time it keeps coming to business people's mind is like, am I pricing it correctly? Am I losing money on it, or am I losing customers because of my price or something? So these are just few examples that we kind of listed over here. It would be great. I mean, it would be actually really nice if you guys can share some of your decisions or some of the things that you are like questioning every day and making decisions on, and which might be interesting for all other listeners over here on the webinar. So if it would be great if you can share some of those examples in the meeting chat. Would love that interaction. Many companies, many countries, many people, they will make decisions based on hunches. I mean, we have seen this over and over. We have just a classic example of say Motorola company. I mean, they used to be the number one cell phone manufacturer, cell phone providers few decades back. Now, what happened was that they were kind of focusing more and more on their uh, kind of a form factor and making it look sexier or nicer, the whole razor brand and things like that. And they kind of focus more and more on the appearance instead of going towards more kind of functionality. As the whole industry was getting mature, or as the citizens of the world were getting mature and mature, and they started getting into more smartness, Motorola actually missed out on that board, and they lost their market to iPhone and BlackBerry and other cell phone manufacturers at that time. Similar example, Kodak. Kodak kind of invented digital photography. They had their first digital camera long before any other digital camera came in, but they didn't make enough investments in marketing it, enough investments in making it consumer ready. So they actually lost in the race of the digital photography. Some examples, I mean, it goes down to even like Microsoft. I mean, to give you an example, simple example, Microsoft came up with smartphones long before any other smartphone manufacturer came back with, but they lost the market of smartphone OS to Android and to iOS, because they focus just on the enterprise side of the smartphone users instead of consumer side of the smartphone users. So we have examples over examples where people make decision based on their the hunches instead of looking at the trends and the data and the real time information that is coming in. So Scott, I mean, I'm talking about the things that people miss out. Like, can you talk about how, if you start taking decisions based on actual data, how you what kind of benefits that you are going to get?
Absolutely. And by the way, I feel kind of bad because I still have a Razor phone. But anyways, so anyways, what does using, I'm kidding, by the way. What does data do? Well, data basically is the key. And what better picture than office space, right? Running your business on actionable data means you're able to identify, combine, and manage multiple sources of data, build advanced analytics models, and predicting and optimizing outcomes. And again, in a minute, we're gonna go over and show you, begin to look what the dashboards are able to do. But this is what the data is able to do, and it transforms your organization and the culture of your company so that data actually produces better business decisions. So in other words, when you have your meetings and et cetera, people are actually there not just shooting from the hip. You're actually going, I've done the work, I've looked at the research, I know what we need to do from a business standpoint. Decisions are based on fact, not hunches, and guesses, not intuition. And I just said, and productivity and efficiency and profitability is much easier because you're able to scale it out. You're able to predict in a much more accurate fashion what's going to be the trends next month, next year, and next decade. So now that we've kind of shown you a little bit about some business that use data, what I'd like to do very briefly is kind of just give you an evolution of BI and data, so to speak. And when you think about the evolution of data and business intelligence, one of the most popular ways to look at it is looking at it as a wave. Now, back in the day when I started at Microsoft and Power BI was just coming out, it was so totally different. And we looked at it and we came across as it totally different because we were pitching it to just a few people that were inside the organization. Okay. So in other words, in the old days, so to speak, not that old, at least not to me, so to speak, the BI organizations would typically have a team or a person that would be handling all of the requests for insights from the company, and all the data flowed from this person's. Okay. So what began to happen is that companies began to realize that this is not an effective way to get data to the people in our team, so to speak. So to begin to look at that, they began to look at fixing the scalability gap by having a second approach, and that was to get the BI capability in the hands of analysts across the table who understood the business and was able to support the decision on a much wider scale with analytics. Now, as we begin to continually evolve our analytics and data, we understand that everybody should have these tools, right? We want everybody that works with us to be able to make decisions on accurate data that happens and occurs instantly. So with that, we look at ways to do businesses better and put the data in the hands of the people that need to actually interact it. And that's you, that's your team, whether it's the CEO or the analyst doing, whether it's the business report, whether it's a profitability report, whether it's a marketing dashboard, whatever you need to do, you're all key people of this journey. Now, when we look at old data, so to speak, we think of like Excel, and is this your old reporting tool? This is so 80s. Excel came out, I want to say in 1985, and I was that's back in the old days. So, where's your reports kept? How do you track it? How do you input it? And Excel was really one of the most important things that we remember in old data, so to speak, is that the information is only as good as the data that was input, correct? And when you begin to look at the old Excel or the other different reporting tools, as you begin to look at data, part of the problem was when data input errors occur, all your data is thrown off. Okay, so the next thing is to look at the old classic data infrastructure. Okay, and when you look at that, I'm going to get this off my screen. No one would ever say that the traditional data warehouse was a nimble or agile tool, so to speak. It's a great place to store a large volume of data, but that's exactly what it is. The data warehouse is a large place to store data. And as we began to look at modernizing our data, we actually understand the difficulty it is that you have, that everybody has, of pulling the data out and getting usable analytics, getting usable tools in your team's hands. And that's where we begin to look at the journey of where data is and why we're here today. So with that, what I'd love to do is have Dharmesh kind of explain and expand on the modern data infrastructure.
Sure, Scott. Thank you. Um, the classic data infrastructure, as you can see on the screen, I mean, we talk about like every department, every piece of data is going into the central data store, and that basically creates a common data store. So when we look at this technically, in our in an engineering term, what we are talking about is like the data coming from different systems and using the ETL, extract, transform, load language, we process. Basically, we are collecting the data into a data warehouse. Now, there are challenges with it. I mean, there are issues with this kind of traditional data infrastructure. First thing is like it's kind of going into central repository. So if a new data set comes in, there is a process and there is a longer cycle to get a new data source integrated into this thing, and which takes a longer time, and it's not like a real-time interaction. There are challenges with the classic data infrastructure. Not semi-structured and unstructured data are not kind of getting consolidated with the structured data. Uh, you you have challenges combining the data from external sources. The computation and storage, when they are kind of coming into one place, there are always challenges of utilizing the data warehouse in a timely way, because many cases when we go into the classic data infrastructure, there are challenges associated with that. Okay, the data gets refreshed overnight, but it takes time and it is slow, or it needs to process through the whole thing before I can utilize this thing. There are challenges around that. So the goal here is basically like how we can transform this whole thing into something called modern data infrastructure, where we can have data, compute, and connectivity in kind of a slightly a generic way, so that we can actually have a consolidated storage, we can have like a consolidated advantage of this modern data infrastructure. Um, Let me talk about quickly about like what do we call a modern data infrastructure, where we basically talking about like, hey, it becomes a system of record. I mean, we are getting data from all the possible locations, all the things that can kind of help you making certain decisions. It becomes a great data staging platform. It can allow you to create different kind of analytical model built on those kinds of things. You can create different big data models, different machine language algorithms that you can put in. You can extract information that is going to actually help the consumers of the data in the best possible way. So ultimately, if you want this whole data thing to become a system of actions also, I mean, you don't want it just to be simple data repository. You actually want to enable certain automations and certain decision makings so that it becomes an actionable kind of thing. A classic not classic. I mean, one example of this modern data infrastructure is basically a cloud-based data warehouse. And this is a slide that I took from Microsoft, and Microsoft is trying to explain how you can use Azure Cloud in order to create a modern data infrastructure. And you can see different kind of line of business sources can provide in data. It goes through different layers of processing to go into a data storage that is directly accessible, not only for the analytical purpose, but directly for reporting purpose, directly for decision making purpose. And that whole data storage is also available for making certain automations and certain actions that you can actually take. Now, before I go further in, I want to basically do a level set, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people, a lot of you already know about different kind of Microsoft technologies that we are talking about. But I just want to do a level set and make sure that I introduce this thing to all the participants here. This is about Microsoft Power Platform. Now, what does the Microsoft Power Platform do? It's a business application platform that Microsoft has come up with, which kind of provides you an interface for a low code or no code kind of a mechanism in order to perform different kind of data related operations. Now, this is basically when we have a modern data infrastructure in place, or we have a classic data infrastructure in place. How can we create an automation layer on it? How can we utilize the data using simple tools and start towards our journey towards making actionable insights kind of thing. Now, there are tool sets. Power BI, most of you are familiar with it. It's a reporting and analytical tool that Microsoft Power Platform has. There's another application called Power Apps. Now, this is a low code, no code kind of an application environment, which can actually attach to the similar data sources as we attach those in reporting tool like Power BI. It can actually latch onto that. It can make certain actions. It can be your data gathering. It can also do analytical processing. It can also make certain actions on certain things. Now, similarly, there is another product which is called Microsoft Power Automate. It used to be called Flow. In fact, a lot of places still called Flow. What it does is it provides you a mechanism for moving data from one side to another side, or one process to another process. And also it kind of gives you like a mechanism for shifting the action focus from one system to another system. It also has capabilities like robotic process automation, which gives you capabilities to perform certain actions automatically and create a lot of automations about it. There is the fourth piece of it, which is called Microsoft Power Virtual Agents. It provides you an intelligent chatbot system, which can actually act on the data sources, the common data sources that we are talking about, and provide a mechanism and a real-time a chatbot answering functionality to your consumers and your users who can like actually directly access the same data and get the insights immediately. Um, just another architecture here. I'm going through a bunch of architecture, so I apologize. But this one is a kind of a sample architecture where we are collecting like data from different sources and collecting it into different kind of data storage and utilizing it in different kind of applications. There is another simple storage now available, which is called Dataverse or Common Data Services, which kind of can act as a common storage for a lot of business applications and business objects kind of thing. So it kind of comes in, and how you can utilize it in different kind of tool sets using Power Apps, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents, and things like that. So think about this. You don't need to go into the detail right now, but the idea here is that the platform, as we talk about in terms of the modern data platform, it kind of allows you to create solutions just built on your existing data infrastructure or a modern data infrastructure to create and to elevate the value out of those. Now, with that, I just want to highlight few examples that I have collected today, and pardon the little bit of hiccup here, but I hope this will work out. Now, let me start with one example over here, which is kind of a report that is there, and it's again a fictitious organization here right now. But when you're trying to do a sales team management, what kind of decisions do I need to take? I mean, I need to look at how my team is performing, whether I'm basically getting the most out of my team. Am I distributing my team across different geographies? Am I setting the right targets for sales or not? So data can come from multiple systems, including HR systems or your CRM systems or accounting systems, ERP systems. The data can come in from different kind of things. I can look at um, I can look at like how actual versus target is happening with different kind of regions over here, and I can see that okay, you know what, more or less my actual and targets are kind of matching, but in Massachusetts I'm losing out. I can click on Massachusetts, and this is where the actionable insight comes in. I'm actually trying to analyze real time and make certain actions. So I click on Massachusetts over here. I see the kind of the companies that I'm targeting, kind of industries I'm targeting, and most of these are actually manufacturing industry. But when I look at my salesperson over here, who I've got Nancy, who is working on different kind of things, but she has expertise on construction. So I see a kind of a mismatch that is going on over here between the industries that I need to serve and between the people that I have got who are serving those. So I need to make certain decisions over here. So I go through get different kind of regions over regions and see if I can utilize somebody who are over in Massachusetts in order to kind of meet my targets. So when I go through this exercise over here, and when I click on Connecticut, I see that I've been making. I mean, I've been a little bit above my target. So it's a great story over here. And when I'm going through my sales team over here, I see that I have one who's working, who has got expertise in manufacturing industry and who is already are doing a good performance for me. So what I can do is like I can make a strategic decision over here. Is like, you know what, I need to focus on Massachusetts because that's where I'm training right now. He has already met his targets in Connecticut, so I can go and I can make him part of my Massachusetts team. So I can in the real time I can click on one, and when I click on one, I get all my reports kind of getting updated over here. Everything gets selected for one. And I can see there's this actionable pane that is available on my right hand side of the screen. I can actually real time come over here and assign a new region for him, add extra target, like maybe say, I'm just hypothetically putting $10,000 and update this thing. And as I am updating, as you can see that when the process kind of gets finished, it actually updates the data behind the scene right over there. And if I want to see the real-time inference on this, I just need to make sure that my data gets refreshed. So I'm going into the backside of the Power BI to make sure the data gets refreshed. And let's see if my report got refreshed. So let's go back to the okay, let me know to cancel and just refresh it over here and see if I've got one working in Massachusetts now. Um, okay, data refresh is taking a little bit longer, but my goal here is basically that as I'm going towards different regions, my when I go to different geographies, I can make decisions right away over it. Similar thing when we go into a bunch of financial reportings and financial things that and any organizations look at. I mean, we are looking at income statement, we are looking at net sales, what's our EBITDA is. We want to analyze all our performance across different divisions, different countries, and things like that. We basically rely on some reports like these. Now, when the reports are static based on PDF or based on ERPs and all, and we go through that, you cannot make certain inferences easily, or certain you cannot get insights. You have to actually open up different kind of reports in order to see that. Now, what a platform like Microsoft Power BI provides you is a consolidated platform where you can actually have access to these data right over there, and you can interact with, you can get into the details, you can go into the things right over here. Now you can see, I can I'm looking at the income statement over here. I can click on net sales and I look at net sales by year. I can look at EBITDA. I can see EBITDA. I can see different kind of summarization that I have created. And not only for this particular year, we can actually go via in the past and look at certain information over here. Now, as we are looking at the income over here, we can also see like how things are performing in various countries. So I can look at US operations, and I can, like, when I just take my mouse over there at US operations, I have extra details that are popping up right over there. Now it becomes very easy to consume information when the information is readily available right at the time I'm looking for. So when I'm going through country, I can look at, like, okay, the details of, like, different kind of the classes of my accounting, and I can see where my money is going. I can click on, I can just move my mouse to Canada, and I can look at the Canada record. I can move my mouse to France, and I can look at the French records. So it becomes very interactive right over here. I can look at different kind of data elements over here, and something interesting that I can do is I'm looking at this income over here, and I suddenly see that from 2016 to 2017 there was a sudden increase in sales. So I need to find out, like, what exactly happened, and that I can analyze right over here by right clicking on this thing, click on analyze, and hey, explain me the increase, why this increase. So I can click on that, and it gives me some analysis, some algorithmic based analysis, like what actually happens, and it is giving me a detail of the data behind the scenes, so that I can make actual inferences and make certain decisions based on that. And now that data is not only available as different kind of operations, I can look at it into different kind of form factors also, how things are distributed across, and kind of go deeper into the data to understand what exactly is happening and make certain decisions. So things like that are kind of available with the platform like Microsoft Power Platform and Microsoft Power BI, which kind of makes your whole data very interactable and very usable. So as I mean, we went through these sales side and financial side. Let me talk about, like, hey, in the general performance analytics and general performance of an organization, I am not only looking at one department, but I'm looking at information across multiple departments, and especially at an executive level. I'm not only just responsible for sales, but I'm also looking at information for regarding HR, information related with projects, information related with my marketing infrastructure, bunch of data that I want to look at. Now you realize, in the previous two examples that I was giving you, we were kind of confined with one screen and we were looking at one report. Now here I have a like a list of reports which is going from top to down. It's kind of a dashboard of information that I'm looking at. It's not the reports are not coming from one source or one report, but it's coming from multiple sources and kind of coming in as a dashboard to me. And I can look into this. I can go into the details. I can see different kind of data over here. And when I need to know a little bit more, there's a capability in Microsoft Power BI, which you probably might be familiar with, which is natural language processing, providing you a question and answer feature. So I can click on this question and answer thing, and I can, like, hey, I'm looking for, say, total if I can type, okay, total revenue, say by year, and then quarter. Okay, let's see. And it quickly, like going through the whole data set that I have access to, and it is producing this information right over here. And I can see it in different kind of, this is showing as a line chart. If I want to look it as different kind of tables. So for example, I'm just looking at the information so that I can actually export it into my email and talk about it, things like that. I can have direct access over here. And if I like this kind of things, I can actually pin it into my dashboard or into my visuals so that I can look into this information even later on. So the kind of capabilities that comes in with Microsoft Power BI is not limited to things that have already been created for you, but also things that you can actually create on the fly by using capabilities like Q&A. Now, there's another thing, like if I want to go and I'm going through these different kind of things, and like different departments over here. And now let's look at like HR performance, and I'm looking at turnover, and I want to go a little bit deeper on this. So I don't like I can click on this report, this visual, and it takes me to the detailed analysis of that particular thing. So I go in, and now it is like going into the detailed HR performance. I can look at different headcounts analysis, different departmental analysis, different cost analysis across things, and make certain actions. And I can also, again, do my further question answer. And if I need to know a little bit more, I can go into these details. So in a nutshell, I mean, what I just try to kind of demonstrate to you is how this interactable Power BI, actionable Power BI interface can actually help you make decisions better. Instead of static reports or static views that you get out of your line of business applications, you can actually analyze this thing across the different systems together and bring the data in such a way and create a data models in such a way that actually can give you capabilities to make certain decisions better and quicker. I mean, this information is readily available to me. I can interact with it. I can make certain decisions by adding certain capabilities like Power Apps or things like within the system, so that I can quickly act and change a sales geography for one particular individual and kind of balance out my operations. So you can see like how the tool sets like Microsoft Power Platform and Microsoft Power BI can help you um, in making certain decisions faster. Let's take Scott. Why don't you give us an example of what we have done in the past and kind of go over it real quick.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dormish. And again, I'm going to go through this really quick because I want to make sure that we have time to answer questions. And as we come towards the end, so to speak, I know myself, and I think we got our senior BI analyst Swapna on. We're glad to stay on and answer any questions afterwards. I know some of you have a hard stop. So with that, let me just give you a quick example. This is a customer, a client, American Nurses Association, and many of the issues that the demo covered, they were running into when they came to us. And what we wanted to be able to do was give them an ability to gauge the market and basically react more effectively. And we wanted to give them an ability to get much better results. And when you begin to look at data and how you handle data, most of the data business driven objectives, and goals, so to speak, should be keyed by the dashboards and the reports. So when you look at Power BI and you look at success stories, so to speak, it is okay. Once we captured the data, which was what we went through on the demo, is how do we extrapolate the data in a useful format, so to speak, and that's where a tool like Power BI comes in, Power Apps, and make it easy for you and your team to get the data, make it reportable, make it easily to act upon, and make it agile. That's exactly what the American Nurses Association asked us to do. We set them up, we got them going, we built a format for them to work off of. And then what we continually do as their goals change, as what they want to accomplish change, as other aspects change, we simply update everything. Once you get it in place, it's easier to manage basically. Okay. So when you begin to look at building your reports, begin to building dashboards, this is some of the basic things that you want to see. How are you going to look at compiling the raw data? Well, first of all, you want to make sure your data is reformatted and pre-processed. Your data is cleaned up. You want to be able to basically make sense of the data, right? You have a strategic data analysis. Okay, what's important, so to speak. You can validate the predictions. Okay, in other words, we want to get away from hunches, and the result, you're going to make better data-driven decisions. And when you look at your data journey, so to speak, you want to look at a couple of things. Your data journey basically starts as you have data, and then you want to go, how can I see my data? So most every company has data, okay? It's how are you going to process your data, and then how do I begin to use the data, look at the patterns, how do I interpret my data, okay? In other words, as you mature and evolve, so to speak, and we go from, well, I just have the facts, so to speak, how do I act upon my facts? How do I look at strategically in the future managing my facts? And then how do I bring other data sources in to continually grow that? Okay.
So let me kind of like again re-emphasize why are we doing this? I mean, ultimately, uh, we want our reporting and our data analytics to be interactable so that we can actually make better decisions. I mean, ultimately, if I'm making decisions based on hunches, as we talked about, I mean, I might making myself prone to a failure or prone to kind of a left behind kind of scenario. I also want to increase the efficiency. I want to make sure that my sales team is allocated at the right place so that I can get the best out of my targets over here. I want to increase the productivity. I want to make sure that all of my people are utilized in the best possible way. And I also want to make sure that if there are overages or there are kind of cost leaks that are happening, I want to control it right at the time when it starts happening. So that's where we need to basically keep looking at our data, keep looking at the real-time information so that we can make certain decisions appropriately and timely. We also want to make sure that our data infrastructure becomes solid enough that we are not actually losing out on the data. We want to capture the right data and keep maintain the right data. The data security has become the most important kind of compliance requirement. We don't want to set ourselves to a failure where we lose customer information or we kind of make ourselves vulnerable to malicious attacks or things like that. So we need to ensure that our data infrastructure, our reporting infrastructure, all of those are built on the platform which are kind of made for today's vulnerable environment, today's vulnerable world. So we need to ensure that the platform that we choose, like Microsoft platform, they kind of keep up to date on different threats, different kind of challenges, and keep their platform up to date. We also want to make sure that our investments do not go in vain, in the sense like I can make investment now and next year there's something new comes up and I need to reinvest on certain things. You want to invest in something which is kind of a growing, and you want to have that flexibility. You want to make sure that you plan for future, and you want to make sure that you are future ready in certain scenarios. So if a new data set comes in, I should be able to easily integrate with my data models and data reports, and I can make better decisions tomorrow. So things like that you need to keep in mind. With that, I want to make sure that we again recap on our kind of a journey that actually happens when we go in any organization. How do we go about that? I mean, we basically start with identifying the business objectives. Now we need to understand what our goals are, what kind of KPIs are we targeting, what kind of results are we targeting. We need to assess our performance in terms of like whether we are getting those things timely enough or not. We want to make sure that when we are doing those kinds of things, we establish data governance. As I talked about, different kind of security requirement, compliance requirements, we need to ensure that the data governance and the compliance is actually built within. I mean, instead of an afterthought, we need to make sure it's part of our data journey. We need to ensure that the data flow, the data lineage is being maintained, create the right data models and flexible data models so that we can have future integrations possible. We keep on evaluating our environments and prioritize our initiatives again, and this cycle kind of keeps on going on in order to kind of keep ourselves ahead of this data journey and ahead of the decision-making cycles. Um, so this is how we go about. This is our custom journey. I believe there's a poll coming out, and we want to know where you are and where do you think that you would like yourself to be. We will be reaching out to you separately as well. As I see that lot of you, I'm looking for the results from the first poll. A lot of you feel that you are at the second wave or at the beginning of the cusp of the third wave. That's the perfect point where we actually need to evaluate whether we are making our approach in a comprehensive and unified way. We like parallelly investing in our infrastructure on the data infrastructure so as to support our data reporting and data expectations from our executives and management and from our business. So please fill in the survey. We would love to get more information where you are, and kind of when we go into our individual one-on-one session, I want to make sure that we understand as much as possible about yourself so that we can provide our best opinion and best kind of consulting to you. With that, I would like to like quickly summarize about what we just saw. We went through like why data culture is important, why it is important, why it is critical. We talked about the need for actionable insights. It's something that it's very given right now. I mean, if we are not making decisions based on data, then we are kind of setting ourselves for failure. So there's an importance of data. There's importance of understanding of the data. There's importance of generating insights out of data. So that's what we talked about. Then we talked about like different kind of infrastructure element that goes into this. It's not only just the reporting and analytical tool like Power BI. There are basically different kind of investments that need to be made in order to modernize our data infrastructure. We need to make our infrastructure ready to provide us actionable insights. I mean, that's where we need to go for. Then focus on the initiatives. Basically, start prioritizing certain initiatives in a way that you are creating an environment, you're building certain and adopting certain data enabling or decision enabling actionable insights. So basically start working on creating certain inferences out of data models that have been created, start creating a culture within your organization, start adopting those insights or like start practicing looking at those insights and making decision based on that, articulating your decision with the data insights with that, so that kind of creates a culture of data-driven organization. Scott, you want to add certain things?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, first of all. So one of the things we always want somebody to ask is, have you started, modernizing your data infrastructure? And it looks like by some of the answers, some of you had, okay? And what are you trying to accomplish? And have you started with your business objectives? The other thing that I want to just kind of add is that we went through a whole lot of stuff today, and some of the most simple things of where do you store your reports, you're using SharePoint, things like it. These are all things that we can cover. We want to encourage you though to kind of start the next steps, regardless of where you're at. Okay. And to be very frank, we're a business. We'd love you to consider using us. Okay. Things to look at is basically a phase 0 Okay. Or where am I at right now? What are my business objectives? How do I get there? A couple of other things, that we want to offer is this. We do the micro. We're one of the couple companies that do the training for Microsoft Power BI dashboard in a day. And I'm going to be really quick because I want to answer questions. Is that one of the things we want to offer is we do all of everybody there a pre-hour. One of the things we want you to get out of this is we're glad to sit down with myself, Swapna, Dharmesh, somebody, and actually, now that we've kind of give you a little infrastructure, help you build some reports. We're glad to go through some different operational aspects of you. Do you guys have any pre-baked, anything like that you want to do? Something like that. So with that, what I want to do is I want to ask any questions. We want to make sure we answer your questions.
Yep, we encourage participation here. We would love to connect with you after the fact. But if you have any question about the demo or about the things that we talked about, I know some of the things um, might be new to you. Some of the technology terms might be new. We can go into those details later on, and some of the things that you might already know. But it's always good to recap. Why are we doing certain things? Why do we want to do certain things? So would love to take a couple of questions if you guys have, and otherwise, so let me look at. So Jordan, are there any questions here?
Scott brought something up earlier. It was less of a question and more of a statement, but definitely something that we can talk towards.
Mhm. So one thing is basically how we go about implementing or go about like thinking about these things. I will go back to the slide that where we talk about the steps that we need to take. We as a data driven organization, or as you want to march towards being data driven, we need to keep coming to what are we trying to do, what kind of decisions we are trying to make, what are our objectives, what kind of data infrastructure is in place. So we need to like keep coming back to the cycle here, so that we can ensure that our journey is continuous. Our journey is always going to give the um, right output, and keep on giving us new and great outputs over here. One thing I want to highlight is that you can never achieve a final state. Final state is always a kind of a racing street. I mean, you will always, when you are reaching certain state, the new final state will be there. So this is a journey. This is a continuous journey, and we need to continuously evolve based on what the changing business or socioeconomic environment that happens. So for that particular purpose, we need to pick up the right platform, and that's where our platform story comes in, which kind of supports these kinds of things as we move forward. So let's ensure that as an organization we are investing in the right infrastructure and right data infrastructure solution. So what will we do in phase zero is basically we work with your organization. We try to identify certain stakeholders, certain roles, certain audience, and we kind of take representative of each audience and go through a workshop with them. In that workshop, we try to understand what do they do day to day, and try to identify the data points and data elements that they kind of access. And when we are doing that, we create a roadmap of how we can actually integrate these things in order to come up with a solution that is going to suffice and going to help all the people that we met, or all the groups that we met, and in the best possible way. So the phase zero exercise is more about understanding, analyzing, coming up with an approach, create a roadmap, and present a roadmap to you, and kind of help you sell that roadmap back to the decision makers and your management and your organization, so that you can make the right move. And generally, phase zero is, we call it as our investment phase. We basically we co-invest with you in our phase zero approach in order to ensure that you get the best value of what we can provide, and we become part of your journey to achieve that value. So we kind of basically, in order for us to become part of that thing, we co-invest with you in our phase zero exercise.
Kind of like, let me just add, kind of like going to see your doctor for a physical, and you tell your doctor, I want to be able to run 5 miles. Your doctor's going to say, okay, this is where you're at, and this is what you need to do to get there. How do you want to accomplish it? That's probably an easy analogy for a lot of people to understand where the phase zero is. Okay.
Mhm. Great. Well, thank you everybody for giving your time today. We'll love to connect with you afterwards, so we'll reach out to you. We'll follow up after this particular webinar with the recording and the deck and whatever we can share with you. And we look forward to talking to each of you individually and kind of understanding your landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay.
Thanks a lot.